Alors, c'est vrai que j'ai très peu l'occasion de parler français dans ce forum. C'est
French.
très
I've never
intéressant aussi
had
parce
the
que
opportunity to speak French in this
langue
forum, which is quite
avec
interesting
laquelle
because French is
qui véhicule beaucoup.
a
Pas
really
aussi
important
important que l'anglais, mais
language
est
as
important.
well, I
Et
think. Maybe
nous
not as
allons
important
avoir
as
une
English at the
conversation avec
moment, but still an
Christian
important language, right? And so
qui,
today we are going to have a conversation
aujourd'hui,
with
ne va pas être
Christian.
uniquement le président, et même
And
peut-être
so
pas
Christian is
beaucoup le président
not
d'Atout France,
only
mais qui
the
est un expert
president
de
of Atout
tourisme.
France,
Voilà.
but
On
he's
a
also
beaucoup
a
d'années
tourism expert.
derrière
You know,
soi
when you have
sur
so many
des
years
activités
of
multiples et
experience
variées qui
on
sont
a lot of
à la
different
fois liées à
activities
l'investissement, mais aussi à
that
la
are linked to
communication, mais aussi bien
investments, but also
évidemment
to
à la politique
communication or
publique et puis aussi à
even to
l'accompagnement du
public
secteur privé. Je
policies
crois qu'on peut
or
dire qu'on
even,
a
you know,
une bonne
supporting
vision des choses. Et puis,
private
il se trouve
actors. I
que
think
Christian a aussi une
that you do
petite
have a great vision of
spécificité, c'est
things,
qu'il est
you know,
corse. Voilà. Et
overall.
donc, il est
And
représentant
one
aussi
specificity
aujourd'hui
of my friend
du
Christian
tourisme
Mantei is that
corse.
he's also from
Ils ont
Corsica,
quelques petits
so he's a
éléments parce qu'ils ont
representative of
une
the
île
tourism in
très
Corsica
particulière de la
today.
Méditerranée.
We know
Et
that
je reviendrai
Corsica
un peu
is a
plus loin pour
very
savoir de pourquoi
special
elle ne roule pas
island
encore.
in the Mediterranean
Parce
Sea.
qu'effectivement, il
And
y a
I know that
assez
whenever I go to
d'accidents.
Corsica and I have an
Voilà.
issue, I always go to
Christian,
a Christian. You always have to be cautious when you go to Corsica. So, my
cher
dear
Christian,
Christian,
nous allons aborder des sujets pour
we are going
extrêmement
to
sérieux
be
aujourd'hui.
talking
Nous
about
avons, vous
extremely
savez,
serious
aujourd'hui,
topics today, actually. So,
j'avais
today, as you
invité
know,
au moment
I
du
had
démarrage du forum, je vous avais invité à
so when the forum
avoir
started, I
quelques
had
réflexions sur l'impact
invited
humain,
a
sur
few
les
people to
employés,
talk
les
about,
communautés,
you know,
et sur
employees, communities,
les voyageurs eux-mêmes, sur les
humans in
consommateurs.
general, and
Mais
talk
le
about
deuxième impact que
travelers as
vous aurez
well.
aussi
But the second
dans cette
impact,
salle tout à l'heure par
and
l'intervention sur le
we'll
business travel, et vous l'avez vu
talk
aussi
about
dans
it a bit
cette salle
later
précédemment,
when we'll
c'est
have
l'impact
an
économique.
intervention
Et
regarding business
l'impact
travel.
économique,
So,
la première question
anyways, what I'm saying
qu'on se
is that the
pose et on essaie
economic
d'épouser,
impact
parce que
is
ceux qui me
really
connaissent un peu longtemps,
important.
parce
And
que
so this
j'ai
is one of the
travaillé avec Christian à
questions
Atout France
that
aussi il y a
is raised
presque 10
most
ans,
of the time. And
donc
I've worked
nous
for
nous
over 10
sommes
years
déjà confrontés
um,
au sujet,
with
et on abordait à l'époque, Christian
on this
était
topic,
tu
sorry. And
sais bien,
so
on avait
I was working with
on était
Christian on
très
these topics, and
interrogatif
I've
du
worked
fait
on
qu'il
that
y
for about
avait
10 years. And I
des
know
gens
that
qui
Christian,
pensaient
at
qu'il
the
y avait un
time,
tourisme durable ou pas, puis il y avait un
we
tourisme,
had a lot
je
of
ne sais
people
pas qualifié d'ailleurs, mais
thinking,
qui ne serait pas
that
durable
we
d'autre
had some
part,
sort of a
et que là, ce
sustainable
serait carrément
tourism on the
pas
one
qu'il soit
hand
pas
and
vraiment très
tourism that
bon.
was
Alors,
not
et donc c'était
sustainable on
une
the
niche.
other hand.
Alors aujourd'hui, est-ce que le
And sustainable
tourisme
tourism was
durable
seen as a
reste une
niche
niche
market basically at
ou
the
est-ce
time. So I
que
was
c'est peut-être
wondering,
notre
does sustainable
composante de
tourism
l'économie générale?
remain
D'abord,
a
je voudrais
niche
dire que
nowadays,
je
or
trouve
is
que
this just the overall
le temps de
tourism sector?
l'idéologie est révolu, même s'il reste
Well, I think
toujours
that
des blocs
ideology, ideology
qui veulent
time
entrer dans le pragmatisme, dans la
is
réalisation,
over
la concrétisation.
nowadays.
Et on voit
Um,
bien que l'économie
and we can
progressivement
see what's happening. We can
s'inverse.
see that economy is
Sur le
working
plan
with
stratégique, c'est
ecology,
vrai
and it,
que
it goes basically hand in
sans, comment on
hand
dit,
nowadays. And to
tourisme
bounce back on what
durable,
you just
c'est vrai
said,
que c'est une
when we
niche
talk about
qui
sustainable
se développe
tourism, it feels like we're talking about a niche market. But when we say
certains
sustainable
acteurs qui
development
avaient
in the
pour
French market, everybody feels
les
like they're
aéroports, par exemple.
part of it.
Donc c'est pas seulement
Even the airports feel like they're part of it as well.
j'allais dire une
So it's
niche.
not only about
Et,
ecotourism.
et pour
It's
illustrer mon
I
propos,
wouldn't say this is a niche
pour
market.
sortir de
And
ces
to try and
discours un
illustrate
peu
what I'm
idéalistes, des
saying, and
constats
try to get out of
qui
this
sont assez finis, il faut
framework
des chiffres.
of
En France,
these
en
observation, and I think that we need
2021, si je
figures.
me
So in
permets,
France in 2021, and
je
I'm
connais
I'm
mieux,
taking France because
on a
I'm more of
investi
an
dans la
expert
transition
when it comes
écologique
to France.
pour
We've
les ménages,
invested
pour les
in
entreprises,
the
de
energy transition for
185
households, for
milliards
companies, and for
d'euros,
public
c'est-à-dire plus de
institutions.
25%
We've invested
par
84 billion
rapport
euros. So
à
that's
l'année d'avant.
25%
Donc
more
on est en très très
compared to
forte
the year
progression, même si on sait
before.
que
So as you
c'est
can
vrai
see,
qu'il
this is a
reste
huge
30 milliards de
increase,
plus.
even though
Donc
we know that we would need
transformation
15 to 30 billion euros
réellement.
more. So we know that this
Il
transition
faut pouvoir
is
le
taking
dire
place just right now,
de la même
actually.
façon.
And we need to be aware of
On
that. And
a
I think that
quand même constaté que s'agit-il
we've also
du tourisme plus particulièrement,
been observing, especially when
les
it comes to
secteurs se sont
tourism,
emparés,
that
que
all
ce soit les
sectors
infrastructures, les transports,
are now
l'industrie,
part
le
of this
transport
transition, whether it's transport,
aéronautique,
whether it's the energy sector, tourism sector.
avec le
When we talk about transport, that could be
les architectes, les
ships as well.
les
We
ingénieurs,
can see as well
les
in the
designers,
construction
les
sector,
géographes, commencent à
architects are
adapter
looking
ce
for
transformat.
better
On ne peut pas
materials.
faire de
So everyone is
transformation, on ne peut pas
adapting, everyone is
faire
transforming,
de
and we cannot
l'énergie de croissance
transform if
sans
there is
permettre
no
de la
growth.
transformation.
I mean, this is
On ne peut
also
pas
thanks to
imaginer
growth that
que
we're
tout
able
à
to
l'arrêt.
transform, right? I mean, we can't
L'économie
imagine
fait une
to just put
parenthèse
everything at a
pendant
stop
plusieurs années
And so we just completely stopped the economy for a couple of years. And so, if we want to have the means to transform, we will need to have growth. This is part of it. And it is quite obvious that tourism is all about offer, right? It's part of offering things to people. So investment is at the root of everything. And we know that the government has been supporting the industry, and it's not that the government spent 38 billion euros, they more have invested this money. They invested in the sector. And if we look at what's happening in the investment sector, and it's quite positive, is that all of the extra financial criteria are becoming as important as the financial criteria, which means that we are being rated on criteria, on extra financial criteria when we invest, and the entire investment chain, whether it's banks or private investors, or even people that are saving money, right? Because people that save money also need to invest their money, but they need to know where to invest money. Actually, they want to invest at the local level, and so there is this big attention, and it's quite virtuous as well for sustainable development, because I can tell you that all of the investments that are being done, and so investment, you'll probably see the result of this investment in 2 to 3, or even in like 5 years, and we can see that this is something quite important. So we do have a lot of investment in sustainable development here. So we can see that sustainable development is something that is being integrated to our economy, and so it feels that we have new models of economy. I mean, of course, when we talk about sustainable development, we need investment, and it's not investment to renew things, but more to try and adjust or to adapt. And so, of course, this puts a lot of pressure on the production cost, for example, such as all of the standards that we have to comply with. And this is the same for the energy sector, for example. This is usually an issue, but this is also an opportunity. And because of the increase of energy prices, we have to think about alternative energies. We have to think about the different things that we can change in the production chain. And so all of the business models are changing. So the idea at the time was to try and reduce the cost, to increase the volumes, and to sell always more. And nowadays, it is different. And they have no other choice, because they have the responsibility, to take everything into consideration. And if they don't change their business model, they will never be able to fix the issues that they have within their own sector. That is to say, being able to re-inject those investments in their own business model. And so that makes me think of a second case here, is that investment, should be done, but you need to make sure that they are as efficient as possible. So this is something that you have to take into consideration. Does the public make the right decision, when they want to support investment being done by the private sector, for example? Well, that they work closely together when it comes to investment. I mean, if we're thinking, if you build a hotel in a municipality, for example, this is nowadays something that you do with the representatives of the citizens, that is to say, with the mayor. Now that, when you want to build a hotel, for example, you have to make sure that inhabitants are okay with it. You need to make sure that this goes with what's been done in the city already. And so you need to make sure that you listen to what people have to say, and you need to have a real conversation with the mayors. And, they're also the mayors of the different tourism actors. They're the first one to come up to us when we have issues. So we're used to have conversations with mayors, and this is already something that is virtuous because we are in a system, we are in some sort of a mechanism that is virtuous here, and each investment is
Ce qui me
in
fait
the
dire
end
aussi
a
quelque part que
collaborative work.
je dirais, cette
Well, that
coordination
makes me think
va
that,
être
when you have all of this
nécessaire. Si on prend
coordination,
par
and I feel
exemple
like this coordination
l'exemple du
here is
transport, et on
key,
va parler
it's
de
going to be
développement du
paramount. I mean,
transport
if we
aérien.
take the example
Le
of
transport aérien va se
transports and,
transformer, il y a le SAF, il y a
planes,
peut-être l'avion
we know
hydrogène,
that,
ça on verra.
this
Il
is
y a
going to
l'avion électrique,
change. We are talking
ça
about
aussi,
hydrogen, we're
c'est
talking
pas
about
encore
electric planes
complètement
as well. I mean, this
opérationnel.
is not something that
En attendant,
is fully
l'avion
operational at the
reste quand
moment,
même un
right? But
vecteur de transport
in the
qui va être
meantime,
important et qui
plane
reste
is
important
still
dans le voyage.
planes are still
Mais
going to be
tout ce qui
part of
se
the
passe à l'extérieur
transport
de l'avion peut être
sector, the transport
décarboné,
vector as well.
que ce
But
soit
everything that
l'opération en
happens within
aéroport
the
ou que
plane
ce
could be
soit tout ce qui est
decarbonated.
acheminement vers un
Whether it's
aéroport de
the
base. Mais là, se pose la
everything that
question, c'est
you
que
supply to
on a
the
besoin de gares dans
airport
les aéroports, par
or
exemple.
what you do in the
Et gares
plane.
dans
But
les
the fact
aéroports,
is that
c'est
we
pas le
need
privé
to
qui le
have
fait, c'est le
train
public.
stations
Et le public n'est pas
in
forcément complètement
airports, and it's not the private
connecté, je
sector that
dirais,
can achieve
dans
that. That's only the
le
public
lancement de
sector that
ces
can achieve
investissements
that.
parce que parfois ils
And so
arrivent
we
trop
need to
tard ou
coordinate
parfois ils
because
ne
when
sont
we're
pas
investing,
coordonnés
usually
ou parfois
investments,
ils
they
n'arrivent pas
arrive
à
too
coordonner.
late, or
Alors,
investments are
on est
not
toujours sur
coordinated, or
cette
they're not even
question, c'est la
planned,
question de la
actually.
synchronisation
Yeah,
des
so this
investissements.
is the
C'est-à-dire qu'au
question
fond,
of the
créer une
synchronization of
solution,
investment.
c'est-à-dire
This is what I'm
créer une offre
always
globale de service,
talking
c'est-à-dire
about, that you
avoir
want to create a global service
une offre
offer
globale de service cohérente par
for different
rapport
destinations,
aux
and it has to
objets
be consistent, right? It
définies de
has to be
recherche
consistent
d'un
with
certain type
the different
de
objectives that you
fréquentation, de
have,
type
for
d'hôtel,
example. So that
etc.
is the number of people that you want to attract
Et ça
within your
nécessite une
region,
synchronisation, c'est ça qui
the
est
way that you
compliqué.
want to
C'est-à-dire
position yourself on the
que vous
market.
avez
And so this
des
is what's
investissements de très
hard
long
to do,
terme
actually. So if you
avec
do have
capacité
long-term
captatrice très très
investments,
forte,
very
des
long-term
investissements plus
investments,
légers, des petits
and
ajustements, etc. Il faut
you have a lot of
pouvoir
pressure
synchroniser.
on
Et là,
your
il faut un
region, you
accompagnement
need to be able
technique
to
de
sync.
l'ingénierie,
So
etc.
you
Il
would
faut
need
une
to have
coordination en
technical
permanence
support. You
avec
would
une
need to
base
have
d'échange très solide, qui est une base évidemment prouvée avec des
a
éléments
lot of
chiffrés très techniques.
discussions
Donc,
and relations
ça,
with
les
different partners.
territoires,
And so
c'est
this is what you
possible.
can see at a territory level, and we can see that this is something that is totally
Bien sûr,
doable.
les
It's just
collectivités,
that
les
you need
aéroports, les
to
gares
be in touch with the
coordonnés
collectivities,
afin que
with the
ça
train
ait une
stations, with
capacité de
airports.
return
People need to
d'investissement, un
coordinate.
return d'investissement
They need to work
structuré. Un
closely
return
together,
d'investissement
because
structuré,
if
de
we
toute
talk about
façon, sur le
investment here, this is
territoire
a
et sur
structuring
la
investment, as we
destination,
say,
ça a
because
un
this is
impact très
basically
très fort pour
structuring
vous.
the
Vous allez
territory. This is
concevoir une
structuring the
gare,
destination
vous avez un
that
impact
you've
dans l'espace
chosen.
public qui
I
est
mean, if you want
très très
to build
important.
a station, of
Donc
course, this will have an
les communes
impact on the
sont
public. This
très
will have an
sensibles à
impact
ça.
on the collectivity. So usually collectivities are extremely
L'usager, le
attentive
visiteur, le
to
voyageur
that.
dans l'espace
And,
public,
the
oui, il peut y
user
avoir des conflits
or
d'usage
the
aussi.
traveler,
Qui souhaitent des mobilités douces, voilà, se
they
promener dans
might
la ville
want to
pour aller
have
à
softer
des
mobilities. They might want to be able to
activités
just walk around the city, just as I've
récréatives.
done this morning in Nîmes.
Donc ça se
And
transforme
everything is done for that in
mais le
Nîmes. So that's
message
great.
qu'il faut
But so
tous
things
passer,
are
c'est quoi?
transforming.
Si vous avez un
And the
message
message that I
à
really
passer,
want to
un,
convey,
ces
if,
problèmes
I
ont
had only
toujours
one message to
existé.
convey here, is that,
Le
first of all
vieillissement
of
du
these issues
foyer
always existed.
nous oblige à
So
accélérer,
the
à
ecology
faire très bien les
transition is
choses, à
forcing us to
changer
accelerate and
mode
do things
de
better.
coopération, de
We
coordination, de
need to
gouvernance,
change the
plus
way
de
that we
concertation
coordinate, the
technique,
way that we govern,
moins
and everything. And
d'idéologie,
so we need to
please,
have more
s'il
technical
vous plaît,
observation as well.
moins
Less
d'idéologie.
ideologies, please. I'm begging for this.
On tombe
Less
dans le pragmatisme,
ideologies.
le
Um,
réalisme, la
you
concrétisation.
know,
On a
we just
tous
want to
le,
be pragmatic. We
il n'y a
want
plus
things to be
d'opposition entre
realistic. We all
l'économie
have the
et la
same
régie. Pour
goals. There
l'écologie,
is
il y a
no
une
more
minorité de blocage
opposition in
et ça y
between the
est,
economy and
vous
the
avez gagné les
ecology.
idéologues. Je crois qu'il
Everything
n'y a même
goes
pas
hand in
les
hand.
citoyens.
Ideologists, you've won.
Voilà.
Okay, you've
Si vous
won.
êtes là,
This is a
il faut
fact.
que notre
Now,
vie
please let
soit
us work.
forcément
We
intégrée
know that you're
forcément
here.
l'écologie.
We
Et
need
s'il y a
still
un
to integrate
secteur
the
qui
economy
doit
within the
monter
ecology that
en
we want to have.
leader, c'est
And
bien le
if there's one
tourisme, même
sector
si
that
le
needs to
tourisme est
be
impacté par tous les autres
at the
secteurs et
forefront of that,
qui
this
s'en
is the
travaillent
tourism
pas,
sector.
qui font du
Even though
budget.
we are impacted
C'est
by
pas forcément le
every
tourisme
single
qui doit
other
travailler
sector,
là-dessus.
because I mean,
S'ils ne
yes,
travaillent pas
we're not
la
working on the
gestionnaire, le
waste
temps souffle,
treatment topic, for
il n'est pas
example.
seulement le
But
seul
if you do have waste everywhere in
impactant.
cities, then
Il est impacté
tourism is
le
going to be
tourisme.
impacted by that.
Mais le
So
tourisme, ça doit
tourism
être
sector is being impacted by a lot of
parce que
different
c'est,
sectors, but it has to be
je pense qu'on sera de plus en plus dans la mobilité. C'est nécessaire.
the engine. It has to be the
Bien sûr, il y a
driver, to
la
keep on
réponse
moving
quand même à la
forward, because
question
we know
de la
that when
mobilité.
it comes to
Moi, je me
mobility,
souviens, Christian, tu
um,
t'en souviens très très bien.
it's the key of everything.
Il y a
When
eu
we
confinement
had
en France,
the
grand
COVID
magasin de
crisis,
boutique.
sustainability was at the heart of everything. On week 3, we have newspapers that were released week 3 of COVID saying this is the end of tourism, and I can tell you that the tourism sector really had its revenge a year ahead of time, actually. And so we know that we need to transform, and we need the means to transform. We have those means, and so we need to keep on moving forward with that. And so when we started working on with Frédéric,
que cette transformation soit profonde,
is that we always want this transformation to be deep and profound, but we don't want to change the whole perspective on what travel is. So we need to act and be part of this transformation. And so this is why it is absolutely essential to have a real cohesion, a real cooperation in between the public sector and the private sector. I mean, we might have different resources, and they do, I mean, they do have a relationship, but they don't discuss so much. And this is exactly why we have this type of forum, because we want hospitality actors, whether it's transport or hotels or restaurants. We want people to communicate, because solutions are not in each sector. Solutions are sometimes in one of the sectors that you work with, so it's important to communicate. I mean, of course, the transport sector is not going to invest in the restaurant sector, but anyways.
Non. Je suis parti un peu vite. Il y a des marottes.
Do you want to add something? No, not so.
Là, deux choses quand même en termes de méthode,
Well,
parce que souvent c'est une question.
I want to highlight two
Prenons les
things in terms of method. Let's consider the examples that are successful.
Parce qu'il y a deux matchs de rugby, deux matchs de foot. Bon.
I love sports, and sometimes during the weekend I have a lot to do because there are some football and rugby matches. And one used to tell me that sometimes the victory is much more serious than when we lose, and we need to ask why we win, and these cases should be some case studies. We need to understand why things don't work well. So next time, but I'm already inviting myself to the next forum, I would like to provide you with some best case practices that have worked in some regions, and this is precisely what we are developing today. I'm not going to talk about my region, as I come from, as I'm Corsican, but there might be people from other islands in the room. In fact, dealing with the islands is not easy at all. While these are really a very strong tourism destination, we need to preserve the cities, the coastlines, and the mountains, because travelers want to visit the most precious sites, and there is a high demand for these sites. So we need to be successful, and there are very good achievements all across France. We want to be coercive. We want people to bring their garbage in bags, so that we don't pollute the most sensitive sites. And we are developing solutions for these sites. However, people need to travel by air, especially those coming from the islands. So there will be a transformation in the ship industry and in the other sectors, and this transformation needs to take place as urgently as possible. Well, this is the last word, Christian. We wanted also to ask, who is the pilot in the plane? Is there a pilot in the plane? Because there is an issue with the coordination, but we don't know who is going to endorse this coordination. In fact, everyone needs to be accountable, the traveler, citizens, etc. And at the scale of a local territory, a region, the state is key. The state needs to have a leadership position and provide the means. Let me also highlight that there is a genuine policy that is very positive and that's being implemented currently. The Minister for Sustainable Development is very much engaged on this issue. There is also a regional decentralization. Regions are very much committed, and there is policy that seeks to coordinate the flows at the regional level as well as the investments. And as I mentioned earlier, there is also the another level that is very key, which is the level of the local level, where there is a strong tourist pressure. Thank you. Really, it is very urgent. I think there is a need for a lot of engagement from the governments. Governments need to listen much more to the sectors, to the industry, and solutions need to be brought forward by companies with the facilitation of government, while it's not always like this. Absolutely.